Today, let's talk about ransomware, but I want us to think about it a little differently. We're not just going to look at this as some sort of technical problem. Oh no, we are going to treat it for what it truly is, a high-stakes, fast-moving digital crime scene, and we're going to walk through this investigation together, from start to finish.
And believe me, the stakes could not be higher. This quote right here, it just nails it. Having a good response plan is literally the difference between a security event you can contain, a manageable crime scene, and a complete, catastrophic disruption to your entire business. It's that serious.
So here's how we're going to break down this investigation. First, we'll get into the heist itself. Then we'll talk about building up your defenses. After that, we step right onto the active crime scene to handle the response. And finally, we'll cover the recovery and how to make sure it never, ever happens again. Okay, first things first. Every good investigator knows you have to start by understanding the criminal's MO. To even have a chance at cracking this case, we have to know exactly what we're up against. So what is ransomware at its core? Well, you can think of it as a digital kidnapping. Malicious software gets into your network, it finds your most valuable data, your files, your systems, and it locks them up tight. Then, the criminals demand a ransom payment to give you back the key.
So how do they even get in? Think of it like criminals casing the joint. They're not just looking for one unlocked door. No, they're testing every single entry point they can find. A tricky phishing email, an unsecured remote connection, maybe even a known vulnerability in some software you forgot to update. They have a whole bag of tricks to get inside. Knowing their methods is a huge part of the battle. Now, let's look at how to foil the heist before it even begins. The best way to solve a crime is to prevent it from happening in the first place, by setting up your defenses long before any alarm bells start ringing. This playbook is really built on 3 key pillars. First, you gotta have a plan. Without defined roles, chaos just takes over in a crisis. Second, you need the right tools. Things like offline backups, which are basically your insurance policy, and security training that turns your employees into a human firewall. And third, and this is so important, you have to practice. Simulations are where you build the muscle memory to act decisively, not defensively, when the pressure is on.
But look, no defense is perfect. So now we're at the heart of the action. The break-in has happened, the alarms are blaring, and the response team is going live. Welcome to the digital crime scene.
So, how do you even know a crime is in progress? Unlike a broken window, the signs here are all digital. What are the clues that you and your team should be looking for?
These are the digital fingerprints left at the scene. Your systems might suddenly slow to a crawl. Users might start reporting that they can't get to their files. Your security tools could be lighting up with alerts. Or you might see the most obvious clue of all, a digital ransom note right there on the screen. These are the first signs that tell your team something is deeply, deeply wrong. In these first crucial moments, methodical action is everything. The first step is not to panic, it's to contain the situation. You have to isolate the infected systems. Literally, unplug network cables, disable Wi-Fi. It's the digital equivalent of cordoning off the area. Only then do you activate the response team and start to figure out the full scope of the crime scene.
And just like in a physical investigation, you don't start cleaning up right away. You have to preserve the evidence. Taking images of infected systems and collecting log files, all of that is absolutely vital. This evidence is what helps you understand how the attackers got in the first place, which is critical for making sure they're fully kicked out.
And this brings us to the moment that every victim dreads, and probably the most difficult question in any ransomware investigation. The criminals have made their demand. So, what do you do?
Well, the official advice from law enforcement is crystal clear. Don't pay. It just fuels the criminal enterprise, and honestly, there's no guarantee you'll even get your data back. But the reality for a business that's facing collapse can be a lot more complicated. Sometimes it might seem like the only or the fastest path to recovery. It's a brutal decision and one that absolutely must be made carefully with legal counsel. All right, with the immediate threat contained, the investigation moves into its final critical phase. And this is about way more than just cleaning up the mess. It's about rebuilding and making sure the criminals can't strike again. The road to recovery really has 3 stages. First, eradication. You do a full forensic sweep to make sure every single trace of the malware is gone. You can't have the criminal hiding in a closet. Second, restoration. You rebuild from clean backups. This is where your earlier preparation really pays off. And finally, before you ever reconnect to the internet, you fortify. You patch the vulnerability they used, you change all the passwords, you strengthen your defenses. You don't just rebuild, you rebuild stronger.
Every investigation has to end with a debrief. And the goal here is to be brutally honest about what went right and what went wrong. Did our communications work? Did we have the right tools ready to go? Documenting these lessons is how you turn our really painful incident into a much more resilient organization for the future. So the key takeaway here is this. Surviving a digital heist isn't about luck. It's about preparation, it's about practice, and it's about having a clear-headed plan. The final question to ask yourself isn't if an attack might happen, but simply this: are your defenses ready?